An 18-year-old girl is going to be able to take the most. And I think that's when you see these girls just pedal to the metal. I don't even want to know what Mal O'Brien does.
When you look at Mal O'Brien, right? Mal is 19 years old. When you look at Paige Powers, she's 20 years old. She took second. Emma Lawson in third, 18 years old. I mean, most of these girls.
I feel as though CrossFit it's at a next level of evolution where the athletes are now, most of the top 10 athlete or top 20 on each side, women and men, are making six figures. They have over six figures followings on Instagram, YouTube, what have you. This is very professionalized now. And what we're seeing, at least I would love to see statistics on this, but the average age seems to be going down.
Yeah.
And my theory with this is, like, if you look at Olympic sports, the best women are going to have breakout seasons. I'd say 18 and then, 19, whatever, but 18 years old. And sometimes I think swimming and diving, I think of gymnastics.
Well, gymnastics.
I mean, weightlifting, women in weightlifting. I mean, 18 years old, like, you're in the mix. And I think men, it's probably 21, 22, 23. Justin Medeiros is 23 years old. I don't think many people are talking about this, but if, the woman who just won, or young woman who just won, is Mal O'Brien. And, like, people are like, whoa, she's so young. It's like, well, not really anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I think if we look at biologically, females go through puberty earlier. And at about 18, all of that puberty is settled in, and they can take the most possible volume that it's humanly possible. An 18-year-old girl is going to be able to take the most amount of a beating in training. And I think that's when you see these girls just pedal to the metal. I don't even want to know what Mal O'Brien does, but I feel like the men, Justin Medeiros, 23 years old, it's the same thing. How do you feel about that? I feel like you were competing almost into your 30s, right?
Yeah. It's a really interesting observation. I mean, I could also probably, so I agree with you. I want to start by that. I could probably also make the debate that Tia Toomey is by far the greatest, female ever. Not even close. And she's pregnant right now. When you look at Mal O'Brien, right? Mal is 19 years old. When you look at Paige Powers, she's 20 years old. She took second. Emma Lawson in third, 18 years old. Now, the open is one expression of fitness because it's kind of skewed. Although I do think it's a good indicator, it's also not the same as, underneath the bright lights, whatever, because you could redo it. But look, most of these girls, there's the oldest one in the top 10, the oldest girl in the top 10 is Amanda Barnard, who's 31, which is a pretty big outlier. Most of these girls are younger. So yeah, good observation. I think what happened is, CrossFit kind of blew up. Let's just say, I don't know. What do you think? 10 years ago, give or take?
I would say 2014 is when it got really big.
Sure. So almost 10 years ago. And I think, a lot of parents kind of started finding it, changed their life. And so they started introducing their kids at an appropriate age. Like, for example, my daughter and I would work out every morning in the garage. And so they get interested in it. I personally think that kids should be doing group sports and they should be doing traditional sports. However, they should also be adding in some CrossFit and strength conditioning. I think they should be doing both. But that's just my take on it. But yes, I think you're right. It's definitely getting younger and it has professionalized more. And I want to see them make money and be successful.
Yeah. Isn't that wild though? Like that. And I think I definitely want to talk more about it. And I'd love to see there's great people on the internet who, like Brian Friend. I don't know if you know who he is. Yeah. He's like really good at doing the math on these things. And it's really cool to finally have statistics on this sport. It's like to really realize, because this is a numbers game. If we look at what everyone was always saying about this, it's quantifiable, repeatable, right? Like if those are true, then numbers need to be an objectively important part of this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think like, Olympians, the best ones, train the hardest. That's it. And the best most of the time, I think team sports can be a little bit different. Football, training isn't as important as just being a good athlete.
Well,
But
and good team camaraderie and,
right.
and good coaching
and a good leader. Yeah. And CrossFit, it's not saying that you don't have to be a good athlete. Of course you have to be a tremendous athlete, be able to pick up skills and do all these different things, but your training is so goddamn important.
It's work capacity. It's work capacity and recovery. That's it. Like,
and so who can do it the most? It's a competition of who can do it the most. And right now you're going to look at 18-year-old women and 23-year-old men, maybe slightly earlier than that.
Well, you hit the nail on the head about like what you were saying earlier. I think you can make arguments against for certain sports, but in CrossFit terms, you're right. Like who could do the most, who can recover the best, who can keep doing it for longer. Because ultimately the CrossFit Games are an endurance event. It's a week long of a shit ton of events. And it's about, who's prepared to go perform, but also be able to recover and get back on it. And I think those are ways that people are training now. When I used to train, I do think people are smarter with their training now, but I mean, man, I remember in 2009, we started doing double days and that was like unheard of. And then it started escalating even more from that. And now I don't even know what they do. They probably just live in the gym.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like I said, I don't want to know what Mal does. She just to me seems like how could you go about beating someone like that? Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and it brings up a really good point though too about the professionals in the sport is like I am concerned about where the sport's going to go with the demands on the athletes. So for example, how do you break into a group of athletes when you have Mal O'Brien and others and congratulations to them from breaking away. But how do you go from like a mid-tier athlete who's like training, but also has a full-time job, trying to figure stuff out, whatever, to then breaking away to be able to do this full-time, to make the commitment to be able to compete with people who are doing it full-time? I'm wondering if there'll further be this gap between people who are doing it full-time and people who are trying to get there. But I wonder what'll happen,
Yeah, but I mean, dude, that's just how it works. It's just
100%.
It's like basketball had the same thing. Like football, at some point, there was a bigger gap. It's making it to regionals in 2013, 2012, like even 2011. Like it was very hard. Don't get me wrong, but I knew a ton of people that like not almost every gym, but most of the gyms that I trained at throughout those years, like had someone going, and they were tremendous athletes, but they weren't these people,
Right.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. And I think, I don't know, it's like, I have this feeling that CrossFit is back, but I'm sure at some point I'll get tired of it. And it's so funny how we all have like these like afflictions where we like put all of our interest and then all of a sudden it just gets old and we go over here. It's like, that's what jujitsu could be for us at some time.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like it's been interesting. Like I've always loved CrossFit since I was introduced to it in 2006. I've always loved the methodology. I've always loved the community. Had a difference of opinion with some of the leadership at some points there's a bunch of reasons, doesn't really matter. But I'm excited for the future where Cross is going. And same thing, like, but for me, dude, like I just got done doing a workout and I love adding in jiu-jitsu. I think that, I think for me, like my normal go-to right now is I cold plunge in the morning and I work out with my daughter. And then I either do jiu-jitsu or CrossFit. And then depending if I do just jiu-jitsu, I'll then add in some like supplemental strength work. But it's a good blend for me. It's where I found good. And then on Saturdays and Sundays, I'll typically go for like longer rucks or longer bike rides. And it's just been a nice way to kind of switch it up. I'd recommend anybody trying to find a blend, because if you're just doing one thing, dude, after doing it for 15, 20 years, you're probably going to get burnt out of it.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that, press here for the full length episode.